Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Kentucky Small Business Development Center's weekly webinar. We're glad you're here. As we allow attendees a few moments to join our event, we'd like to share some information about the Kentucky SBDC. For 40 years now, the Kentucky SBDC has assisted emerging and growing businesses by providing the professional expertise, tools, and information necessary to make sound business decisions. We do this at no cost to you, thanks to the U.S. Small Business Administration, who co-sponsors our program, which is then administered by the University of Kentucky, who partners with regional universities, colleges, and local economic development agencies. We're part of a national network, as you can see on the screen, America's SBDC, which has over 1,000 centers across the nation. To learn more about us, visit kybizhelp.com. There you'll find additional resources to help start, fund, and grow your business. To request personal assistance, you can email us at info@kybizhelp.com or call 1-888-475-7232. A recording of today's webinar will be emailed to you later this afternoon. So if you have any issues with the audio or sound, audio or visual or anything, or you just need to step away, know you're going to have access to the entire recording today. I'm Janet Flom with the Louisville Center, which is one of 17 centers throughout the Commonwealth. And joining me as always are my colleagues from Louisville, Dave Etkin and Tony Sears. So good afternoon, folks.
Hey, Janet. Hey, Tony.
Hey.
Hi, Dave. Hey, Janet. Hey, you all. Guess who made it first to the chat this time? Heather Cummings.
All right.
Heather. One of our new consultants there. And also want to give a shout out today to veterans. Today's Veterans Day. So we want to thank veterans and their families for their service and sacrifice to our nation. So shout out to all of you today.
Exactly.
Well, today's we've got a great webinar lined up today, and I'm super excited about it because we have an awesome speaker. And I'd like to introduce David Pierce from Petra Coach. I've known David for many years. He's got a ton of business experience. He also is certified in a methodology from one of my favorite authors, Vern Harnish. If you haven't read any of Vern's books, check him out. Spectacular work. It's really unbelievable what he has accomplished. And these tools and methodologies we're going to talk about today are really core to planning and driving your business forward. These are all great techniques to get your business set up for success in 2021. We've had a rough 2020. Now's the time to plan for the next year and make it a good one. Isn't that right, Dave?
That's exactly right. Thanks. Thank you.
So I'm going to start you here going for you. There we go. So, Dave, it's all up to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and get going.
Very good. David Pierce, Petra Coach. I do have a slide that has a little information on it. You'll get copies of all the slides with my contact info. So I won't get too detailed, but I'm an entrepreneur like many of you are. 20-something years as an entrepreneur. Previous life, I was a CPA, so I kind of trying to hide that life. That was a good time in my life, but the entrepreneurial thing was a lot more fun. Various industries, you name it, we pretty much got into it. So big background in entrepreneurship. And then about 4 or 5 years ago, I kind of just went out on my own and began coaching companies and got associated with Petra Coach. Now I've been with them for over 4 years, and we coach actively over 130 companies at any point in time all over the world. And in our history, we probably coached up to 1,000 different companies in the methodology. We obviously know it works. We wouldn't coach it if we didn't. So we're excited anytime we can share this. And the good news about all this stuff that we coach companies with is very understandable. It's not rocket science. It's just you've got to be committed to it. So today I want to just kind of go through a plan, what the methodology looks like, and really give you some practical insights on what you can do and why you should do it. And then if you want to get more, just like David mentioned, the book is called Scaling Up by Vern Harnish, and it is very understandable. All the methodology that I'm going to talk about today is in this book. So if you want to dig deeper, get a copy of that. And you can do a lot of this on your own. And obviously, if you need any help, we're here to help you down along the way as coaches. So let's get started. We make a statement: failing to plan is planning to fail. Pretty obvious, but it's amazing how many companies we come across that don't do any formal planning, or they put a plan together 5 years ago and they're still somewhat operating off that plan. So failure to plan is planning to fail is kind of the basis of what we're going to talk about today. I always like to start a little bit with one of our hometown heroes here in Louisville. He's got a couple of quotes that kind of fit nicely with what we're going to talk about, Muhammad Ali. This one is a kind of a favorite quote about preparation, basically. By the way, this is the 55th year anniversary of the Sonny Liston Ali fight. That's what this fight, this picture is from. But anyway, he has a quote that says, "I run on the road long before I dance under the lights." It's what he's saying here to me. He's saying, I prepare before I get on stage. So one way you can prepare as a business is to have a game plan and a vision of where you're going before you really get into the heat of the battle. So preparation is important. This may be my favorite quote from Muhammad Ali. It's just a job, grass grows, birds fly, waves pound the sand, and I just beat people up. And it's really that simple. And that's what I love about having a plan and the way we do it. It's simple once you've committed to it and brought it alive in your organization. So simplicity is very important. We've probably been parts of strategic planning processes over the years, or I have, and you end up after 2 weeks away at some nice resort, and you end up with a binder that's got 1,000 pages in it with all these great things you're going to do over the next 3 to 5 years. And that binder goes on the shelf because it's not executionable. You cannot action off of that. So what I love about what we do, we drill it down to its very simplistic basis and give you an action plan on how to go achieve what you want to accomplish. So simplicity is very important. More about me, you'll get these slides, my contact information. So please reach out after this if you've got any questions or anything that I can help you with that plays into exactly what our purpose in PetroCoach is, which I'll explain in just a minute. So today we're going to, why do I need to plan? What's scaling up and how you can use some of these tools in your business. So I'll walk you through the whole planning processes, from start to end. And then I want to close today with some personal exercise that we know the people side of our business and what we do with companies is the most important thing. We really believe that. So I want to leave you with something I think you'll enjoy. So we'll do a little personal planning at the very end of this session. So what do I need to plan? If you want to boil it down to one word, it's complexity. When you're an entrepreneur, you got one person, there's just one point of communication. It's you talking to yourself. When you get two, you got two. But when you add another person, it goes from 2 to 6 different communication routes. Obviously, the more you add, the more exponential that goes. You only have to add 5 people, and you have communication linkage of over 100 different possible routes. So complexity is what drives most company bonkers and causes them to not be able to perform at the level that they want to perform at because they don't have a way to manage the complexity that's brought on by bringing in more teammates. And this is kind of an interesting slide we always like to show. It comes out of scaling up. 28 million firms surveyed, and what's interesting, only 96% of those 28 million firms did not reach over $1 million in revenue. So most firms are not able to scale much larger than $1 million in revenue. And that's because we call these valleys of death, because they didn't have a system that allowed them to manage the complexity as they grew to a different level. When you're one person, it's easy to manage. You get to be 10, it's a little more complicated. When you get 50, you got to add another layer of management you never had before. How do I lead that group and still stay on plan? So as complexity grows, as you grow, if you don't have an effective system for dealing and considering to run your business, all you're doing is fighting fires all day long. You're not making any progress. So what this is a system for your business. So no plan, you really have no direction because the way you operate, you show up in the morning when the phone rings, that's what you work on all day, whatever the problem is or the issue. And you go home, you're exhausted, and you haven't done anything that you really wanted to accomplish. So you need a plan that you're continually focused on and referring to that and have actions that you're going to take every day that's going to lead you to accomplishment of those goals. And in writing is so important. You may have seen this study. There's all kinds of studies that validate the validity of putting things in writing and how much more effective they can be. But there was a Harvard MBA study that was done, I think, back in the 90s. They went and interviewed all the Harvard grads for that year and asked them this question: Have you set clear goals for your future and a plan to accomplish them? 84% of this graduating class said, nope, no goals. I'm just happy to be done. 13% said that, yeah, I've got some goals, some things I'm thinking about I want to accomplish, but I haven't written any of them down yet. And only 3% of this Harvard MBA graduating class, the smartest people in the business world, you would think, only 3% had goals and then a plan that they had written down. Roll forward. 10 years later, they go back and find all these graduates and they ask them how they're doing, interview them. And the findings were pretty astonishing. The 13% that had goals but hadn't written them down at that point were earning, and earnings isn't everything, but it's a good indicator of success. They were earning 2 times the average salary of the other 84%. The 3% that had written their goals down were on average earning 10 times the average salaries of the other 84%. We have countless stories that support putting things in writing and committing to action will make you much more successful and let you reach your goals, more so than just saying, hey, here's where I want to go, let's take off. That's why New Year's resolutions don't work very well, because most of us don't commit to writing and have an action plan to complete those. So put it in writing. And scaling up, we call it's an operating system to manage and grow your business. And there's 4 areas, which I'll go over today, that we focus on in helping teams develop their strategic plan. So it's something that goes on top of your business. It doesn't replace what you're doing necessarily, but it gives you a way to kind of move the levers and watch your business and manage your business every day. So an operating system for your business is the best descriptor of the strategic planning process. So what are the 4 areas? There's people, which is really your culture, which I'll tell you now is the most important thing you can do to outperform your competitors, is culture. Be really good with that. The other area is strategy, which is more aspirational. It's more dreaming, a vision of where you want to be, not as clear and concise. So strategy is an area. And then execution, when I keep talking about action plan, that's where you really develop a plan of action and you commit to that and you execute on it. And then finally is cash. And what that just basically says, you may be the best planner in the world. You may have the best culture, the best strategy, and the best execution plan. But if you run out of money, it does you no good. So cash is another area, focusing on making sure that we have adequate sources to fuel this company that we're now going to scale. The result is what we call a 1-page strategic plan. It's really 2 pages, it's front and back, but on 1 sheet of paper, you will see the entire plan for an organization, from culture to strategy to execution, all the way down to the action plan. Simplicity goes back to the Muhammad Ali quote. It's really simplicity. And if you can do it, if you can get it to that level, you can communicate it to your team. They can catch the vision and figure out what their role is. Very important for raising engagement so everyone understands where you're going. So those 4 areas, let me talk about each of those areas. Let's go back here. There we go. The first area in the culture area, there's two fundamental foundational things you've got to have a great culture. One is you've got to have a strong core purpose, which is your why. And then the next thing we'll talk about are your core values. I'm sure you've probably walked into a business and you immediately could tell what kind of quote culture they had there. Probably a little dirty. Maybe if some lights were out even in the business and the person didn't look at you, didn't smile, and spoke in 2-word sentences. You could just tell immediately without them saying the first thing to you. I don't know about that culture. Probably not something that I'd want to be a part of. Whereas you probably had great experiences with other companies where you walk in and immediately you can get a feel. We call it the smell of your culture. You can get a feel for the culture. Well, that's what we're talking about here. Have you created a place? Do you work at a place that you want to be a part of? The two big drivers of that is your purpose, which you want to talk about now, and that's your why. So you've got to be able to answer these questions with clarity and conviction. I've got them on the screen. So why do you come to work every day? And your answer can't be a paycheck or money. Those do not continue to be motivational. Those are outcomes of your activities. Long term, they are not motivational. If you survey any companies on money of why they work there, it ends up being lower down the list than you would anticipate. So there's other things that come into play on why people work at businesses. So it can't be money. That's an end result. It will not last as a purpose. And why does what you do matter? And even the bigger question is, would you be missed if you went away today? If you can answer those with real clarity and get very clear and communicate to your team what that purpose is, and you live that purpose every day, you'll have a highly engaged team. There's a book. There's a couple of things I want to give. I'm going to give you some resources today. If you want to know more about why, kind of the guru of why is a guy named Simon Sinek. Sinek is the last name. If you'll Google Simon Sinek Golden Circle TED Talk, he has a nice little TED Talk. He talks about why, and he explains the difference between a mission statement and a purpose statement. And you'll get more clarity on how important it is to be successful and to outperform. So I advise you to go, if you don't know much about the why and have purpose, watch that. It's about 20-minute talk. You'll really learn about that. And then he's also, as you would think, he's got a book. It's called Start With the Why by Simon Sinek. And in here, he'll talk about purpose, how you develop a purpose statement, how you determine what your purpose is as an organization. Give you all kinds of neat examples about that. So a great resource, and I would highly suggest, if you haven't spent any time working on your core purpose, that you dive into that. That is so important. It'll add more meaning to you if you're the business owner, and it'll definitely add more meaning to your teammates as team players as well. So purpose, that's one part. The next thing is your core values. These are your hows, your set of rules, your moral code within your business. And the best example of that, if you're a parent and you've raised kids, you probably spend a lot of time instilling values in them, moral values in them. And the reason you do that is you want them to have some tools when they get off on their own to make the right decisions. So you put a lot of time and effort instilling values in your kids. Well, your business is the same thing. You've got a set of rules. You've got a set of values. Whether they're written or not, you got them. And people operate within those rules and those values every day within your business. So you need to determine what your values are. And there's a lot of resources, and I think we've got some tools that we can give you as well to help you determine your values within your business. But it's very important that you spend some time exploring those and debating those and brainstorming, what do we stand for from a value standpoint, and then commit those to writing. And here's what we end up with. This is Petra, our team. This is our core purpose and our core values. And let me explain here. Our core purpose is explained here, plus 10 MHB. And what that means to us is that's plus 10 million human beings. And our purpose is we want to have a positive impact on 10 million human beings. So that gets me up in the morning. Every day that I begin to work on my Petra stuff, that's my thought. How am I going to have an impact, a positive impact on people today? This webinar today, hopefully some of you will get some good value out of this, and you'll walk away better, and I would have had that positive impact. That motivates me. It makes me do the things that sometimes aren't so fun, like drive 4 or 5 hours to go see a client in the middle of the night, or it keeps me motivated to excel and be a better person every day. So that's our purpose. And these 6 boxes here are our core values. So there's no try, I've got your back, please and thank you, everything experience, see around the curves and be curious. Those are the values. That's our set of rules that we run our business by. And every day we think about these things and we apply them in our business. And the rest of it, we call this a core value grid. But the rest of this is an explanation of what the words mean. So you've got to understand what the words mean in order to live those values within your business. So it gives us the words, which are the there is no try, only do, for example. Explanation of what that really means kind of in our terms, how we live it, and what the benefit of living that value is. So our culture is really expressed in this one page here, and we can all have clarity on it, and we can all know how to use that and apply that in our business. You need to get to this point if you're going to be a high-performing company. And then you hire and bring on teammates that are going to live and breathe this like you. And if you do, you can conquer the world. You really can. You can accomplish anything you want to if you have a very strong culture that everybody, because they'll see around hurdles and obstacles and find ways to get it done no matter what, because they believe wholeheartedly in what we stand for and what our purpose is. Powerful stuff. We know if you don't get this right, executing on your strategy is that much more difficult and almost impossible at times if you don't have a culture where everybody's engaged and behind. So that's people and culture. The next pillar is called strategy. And this is really more aspirational. This is kind of where you're dreaming. What do you want to be at some future point in the future? Some point in the future. You really can't see it clearly, but you have an idea. It's visioning, let's say. So strategy is more, not a lot of clarity or not as much clarity, but it's something you want to become at some further out date in the future. We kind of compare the journey of a business as climbing a mountain. So you're down here, you're getting ready to climb this mountain at the beginning, and you can see way at the top. That's kind of where your big, hairy, audacious goal, if you've ever heard about that, that's the ultimate end game. That's way off there. That's 20, 30, 40, 50 years, whatever it is. And you can just barely see it, but you have some inkling of what you want that to be. And it's up there. And you've always got your eye on that. But as you're looking at that, you're catching different stations along the way. So strategy resides in our methodology in the 3 to 5 year range. We want you to get as clear a vision of what you want to be at the end of 3 or 5 years, you choose, and begin to create what that's going to look like so that you can have a little more clarity for it. So our strategy involves a time frame of about 3 years out typically. So you notice your line of vision, you're always looking at the end game, but you're always catching the way stations or the milestones along that path. And so now we're in the strategy area. So what is strategy? Strategy is a clear vision of where you want to be. That's very important. I just said it's very important. Not what can you be, what do you want to be? And there's a big difference in here. And as the old accountant in me, I can usually come up with a 3-year budget based on historicals. I don't really care about that. That's kind of what we think we can be given how we've done in the past. What I want you to think about as a coach, what do you want to be? You get a different result there. So create a vision of what you want to be and then write the story, kind of a cool exercise. If you've never done this before, just assume Forbes or Fortune, they're going to write an article on your company in 2023, end of 2023. So you're 3 years out now. And they're going to write an article about you. So what you do is you sit down and write that article as if it's already occurred. That'll give you a lot of clarity on what you want to look like. A neat exercise for you to do and then work with your team on. It's really pretty cool. It'll give you a lot more clarity. And you write it in the present tense as if it's already occurred. So it's a visioning exercise. What you can see, if you can see it in your mind, then you can figure out a way to get there. So writing it down gives you more clarity in what you're looking for. And then the brain takes over and you begin to think of ways to get you there that you never thought of before. The way you express your strategy is you end up saying you have a handful of targets, which are your metrics on how you're going to judge where you want to go. And then some capabilities. What do I have to look like? What do I have to be capable of doing if I'm really going to get to this 3-year end game? And they have to be measurable. And I'll talk about those in just a second. And go back to our one-page plan. Well, then our one-page plan, we have a section for strategy, and it'll spell out the targets that we've chosen, the capabilities, and some other things. But again, we're getting it down to it's very concise and very clear that everybody on the team can read and understand and see and catch the vision. So what are these targets? These targets are typically obviously something from a financial standpoint. It's a revenue number, it's a profitability number, maybe it's dollars per customer, that type of thing. So you'll obviously have some revenue metrics or some financial metrics. The next thing is you need to have some customer metrics. So is it a satisfaction level? Is it retention levels of customers, referrals, whatever's important in your business? You determine those things. And then there needs to be some employee-based metrics as well. Employee satisfaction, employee retention, employee advancement metrics, whatever they are, again, for your business. So we think you should have anywhere from 10 to 15 metrics that you're going to measure all along the journey that will help define where you want to go. So choose those metrics, and then you put numbers to them or whatever they are. You say 3 years from now, I'm currently at $1 million in sales. In 3 years, I want to have an annual sales rate of 10 million. So that's your metric. So begin to paint that picture of what you want to look like 3 years from now. And then you think about those metrics, say, well, if I'm going to get 10 million in sales, then I've got to have a sales team of 10 people, each generating an annual revenue rate of $1 million. So that's a capability, a sales team of 10 generating X number of sales. So that's a capability. So what do you have to look like, and what are the metrics you're going to measure in that 3-year window? So you built a picture now. You sit down your team. This doesn't happen in an hour. This takes days and weeks to come up with. But now you've got real clarity. I want to look like this from a metrics standpoint, and here's the capabilities I've got to have. Now you've got the vision. You can see up the mountain about 3 years away what you're going to look like. So that's strategy. Now we get into execution. This is the action part. So is what you're doing now taking you to where you want to go? So is every step that I take up that mountain actually leading me in the right direction, or is it leading me sideways and not in the direction I want to go? So that's the execution place, the actions. All right, so we're back on the mountain. Now we're down here. Execution timeframes are 1 year and less. And the reason that is because you can have a lot of clarity and really have a lot of certainty on what you need to do to get to the end of a 1 year period or a 1 quarter period, much more than you can a 3 year period. So we take actions every quarter and every year that get us closer to our 3 year and our BHAG. So we're going to execute in very short, concise periods of time that ultimately, in the cumulative effect, will lead us to our long-term objectives. So execution, what do I need to do this year that gets me closer to my long-term vision? So let's assume 2023 was our strategy time frame that we worked on. Now we're going to work on 2021, so our next year. And this is a good time to do it at the end of November, in November, as you're thinking about next year. So what you would do, a very similar exercise. You're going to set some targets for 21, probably the same targets categories that you use for 23. And you're going to decide, well, if I got to look like that at the end of 23, and these are my targets for 21, what do I have to look like by the end of 21 to get me closer to my long-term objectives? We call those initiatives or priorities. So back to my example, if my 23-year goal for revenue was 10 million, and I'm currently at $1 million, maybe by the end of year 1 or 2021, I want to have 3 million in sales on an average run rate. And then say, well, if I'm going to do that, I probably need 3 salesmen on board and trained and producing. So you begin to spell out what are the major things I need to accomplish from a goal or objective or a priority standpoint this year to reach my annual targets, which are still in line with everything I want to achieve long term as I'm looking up that mountain. And then we even drive it back down to quarterly action plans. A year seems to still be too long to kind of have one major plan you're going to work on all year. So we found if you work on increments of 90 days at a time, very specific priorities you're going to work on, accomplish those every 90 days, and then reset and have another 90 days and other priorities for the next 90 days. And over the course of 4 quarters, you accomplish everything you wanted to accomplish for the 1 year plan. So we bite it off in 90-day increments. We have action plans. We accomplish those plans. We start anew for the next quarter, more plans that help us reach our in-game objectives. And throughout the course of the year, you accomplish things that ultimately lead to these one-year initiatives that you set up in place. And again, going back to our one-page plan, we know clarity and simplicity is so important. So you would put in here probably these same target categories, and your targets for 2021 are the first year you're going to work on this. What are they? And you measure those throughout the year to see if you're making progress. So targets and what we want to end up with by the end of the year. And then these would be your annual priorities or objectives here. What are the big things we need to accomplish? Well, we need to open another office. We need to hire 3 salesmen. We need to have that new system in place because we're never going to scale without that. What are these, 5, 6, 10, whatever major things we're going to accomplish this year? And then we figure out what pieces of those we're going to work on each quarter. So what is a priority? We call priorities the things you're going to work on as a company and as individuals each quarter, each 90 days. So priority is an important objective or set of deliverables that you need to accomplish over the length of the planning period. Typically 90 days, we work in like 90-day windows, and the priority is accomplished through a series of tasks, or activities. I like to compare it to this. It makes it a little more understandable if you've never done this before. Let's say you're going to plan a trip, and you want to be on the beach in Maui by March 31st of next year. All right, so today we decide we're going to go on a trip. So then you begin thinking through your head, what do I have to do to get there? And most of us don't write it down, but we've got a little kind of running list of things we have to accomplish. So what do you have to do first? Well, I probably ought to ask time off if I'm not the owner to make sure I can get that time off. That's the first step. I want to do that this week. Next week, I probably have to sit down and figure out a budget for this trip and begin saving money. And maybe week 3, I probably should call a travel agent and see what's out there and get costs on trips and resorts and that. So you have a series of kind of sequential tasks that you need to complete in order to be laying on the beach with your cocktail in hand on March 31st. That's what a priority is to get to the beach on Maui with my family on March 31st. And the action plan are all the steps you have to take to get you there. And you build that plan out with specific dates on when you're going to complete these different steps. And you just walk down the path throughout the quarter to get you there. So this is an example of what a priority might look like. So the priority we're going to accomplish this quarter is we're going to develop a customer referral program delivering $50,000 of additional income per month. Very clear. My outcome is very specific. By the end of the quarter, I want to have a program that's capable of delivering $50,000 of new revenue every month. So I can get the end of the quarter, and that's basically a yes or no. And did I achieve it or not? Yes or no. So that's the priority. Clarity of the priority of the outcome you're looking for is very important. And then below this is essentially your plan to complete it. Well, first step, if I'm going to get a customer referral program, I ought to survey my customers to see if they're really satisfied, because they're probably not going to refer anybody if they're not satisfied. So survey my customers, and I'm going to have that done by the 15th of October, let's say. And then out of that, I'm going to determine my top 25%, and I'll have that done by the end of October. And then I'm going to create the rewards program that everybody can weigh in on, and that's due by the 7th. And on down the road, there's 10 steps. At the end, on December 15th, I'm going to roll this referral program out to my 25% of the customers and measure that so I can begin to gauge on whether it's going to be able to deliver what I want to do. So that's a priority in your execution plan. And then the next quarter, you might add to that some other measure. By the end of the time, you've got a revenue stream that's now at $3 million, which is what you wanted to get to. So each quarter I do something to add to that. So that's a priority. And then we have tools, and I'm going to give you a link to get into our vault, we call it, where there's all kinds of tools. So you'll get these. But this is a worksheet that we have our teams work with, and we do it ourselves at Petra. This is a planning worksheet. And just to real quick give you an overview, at the top you'd write down whatever that priority for, your customer referral program. Then you're going to have a team. You want to assemble a team because you can't do it all. It's a big priority, one person. You need more help. So you're going to assemble a team. You list your team here, put everything in writing. You set a regular meeting day to this team. And then these boxes, we want you to think through what's the outcome you're really looking for? What's the best outcome? And maybe more importantly, what happens if we don't achieve this? And I use the word pain here. If not accomplishing this priority doesn't result in some pain to you, it's probably not a good priority, because it's not going to have any impact on your business one way or the other. So what's the pain of not getting this done? Well, the pain of this one is I don't have a program that generates just $50,000 a month in sales that I need. So I'm not going to hit my revenue targets without this program. That's the pain. So we want to identify that and get real clarity on that. That'll help you visualize better how to get to that point. And this next worksheet is just your plan. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, along with the person that's going to take care of it and your due dates. So spell it out in detail, make everyone know their role, and then execute it. And then every week or so, measure how you're doing on the plan. Commit it to writing. So that's execution. Put your plan in writing, have a very detailed plan of action, commit to that, measure progress, stay accountable. And the last area is cash. And this one's so important. Obviously, if you run out of cash, it doesn't do you any good if you've got the best plan in place. So do you have a consistent, reliable source of cash, ideally generated from internal resources to fuel the growth of your business? This is important. You hate to be dependent on some outside party to fund your growth, whether that's a new investor or a bank or some other financing tool of some kind. So the best way to fuel your growth is to have such a high-performing engine, high-margin engine, that you can fuel all the growth you ever could come up with internally. That's the best. Needless to say, not every company can fuel their growth. They're growing much faster than they expected and don't have the resources. So the point is, make sure you've lined up in advance sources of funding for when you're going to need those. The worst time, the old banker, I was an old banker, the worst time to look for money is when you need it. Bankers are more friendly and more willing to help you out when you're strong. You don't really need the money than they are when you're desperate and you're kind of on the edge and you need the cash. So line up your sources now before you need them. We learned a bitter lesson during the pandemic. Many companies were not prepared for something like that. And they were going to their outside sources and they were saying, I'm not so excited about lending you money in your current situation. I've even had clients, we call them members. We even had members last year when the pandemic hit. They went out and drew on their lines of credit and put the money on their balance sheet, and they're willing to pay the interest cost, kind of a cost of doing business to them, because they would rather have the money available if something occurs than to have to go beg for it or look for it when they needed it. So I'm not saying you should do that, but that's why you want to do it. You want to be prepared. So I've seen that happen probably more than one instance last year where people were just drawing online and putting cash on their balance sheet to try and weather this storm that may or may not occur in the future. So cash is king. We can't lose focus of that. So the lesson here is you've got to have some sophistication to a certain degree, or you can do forecasting and modeling so you can predict what different scenarios might do for you so you're better prepared. So something you can't just say, hey, I got enough cash, look at my checkbook. You need to have some capabilities. So get outside help if you need that, or get your CFO to run spreadsheets, but you need to be able to do some modeling for possible scenarios so you're better in tune with what could happen. And this is our one-page strategic plan. Again, like I said when I first started, it's a 2-page document. And again, their resources should give you copies of this, or Scaling Up can give copies of this as well. But this is everything that we just talked about in 2 pages, front and back. So this is our culture piece, our values and our purpose. The third column over is your strategy, our 3 to 5 year targets and capabilities. And then this last column on the front page is your 1 year targets and initiatives and capabilities you want to have. And the second page is more on, here's our quarterly info. What are our company priorities we're going to work on? What are the priorities? What are my task lists to accomplish, due dates? And we'll have both big priorities, and everybody might have some individual priorities as well. So everything we talked about, the whole strategic plan, basically on the front and back of one page of paper. Simplicity. Everybody in your team can read this, understand it, catch the vision, understand what role they play. That's called engagement. Now I want to close with something, but we always find to be so impactful. Going back to the people side. Remember I said that was so important. And the most important side, the culture. Well, people is not just the business people, it's the personal people as well. Everybody listening to this webinar has probably had a day where it didn't go so well at work and they took it home, and it didn't go so well at home, or vice versa. Things aren't going so well at home and you take it to work. So the point is, you cannot separate your personal life from your business life, no matter how hard we try. So the point is, you have to be just as intentional about building the personal life as you are about building your business life. So we think everybody should have a one-page personal plan as well as a one-page strategic plan for your business. Now, the one-page personal plan is very similar to the business plan. Plan your life, get a vision of where you want it to be, and you begin to take actions. This is kind of an interim step we start teams with. It's called the Wheel of Life. So you got an email with the Wheel of Life introducing you to this workshop this morning or last night. Hopefully you printed that. Because I want to walk you through. We're going to kind of walk through about 5 minutes or so, just how to do this exercise, and you can go back and complete it. But I want to walk you through it real quick. So if you'll look at the worksheet, it's called the Wheel of Life. I've got one here. You'll notice there are 6 areas along this wheel: fun, family, finance, faith, fitness, and friends. We call it the 6 F's. We all have these areas to some degree in our life, hopefully. Now, within this circle, there are 10 concentric circles, going from 1 on the inner part of the diagram out to circle number 10 on the outside. So the way the exercise works is I want you to think about each of these areas of your life. And you got to answer this question: how satisfied am I with that area today? How satisfied with that am I with that area today? It's just your personal opinion. And I would encourage you to be brutally honest about this, because this exercise does no good if you're trying to color things and are better than they are. So be brutally honest. It's only about you. And what you're going to do is you're going to think about those in each of those areas. You're going to rank your satisfaction level from a 1, which would be inner, to a 10. And I want you to put a dot on the line in the center of each of those pie shapes for your satisfaction level. So if it's a 6, put it on the 6. If it's an 8, put it on the 8. So everyone you should have 6 plotted dots in the center of each of those pies on the appropriate line, indicating your satisfaction level. So you'll do that first, and then I want you to connect the dots. And this will give you an idea of how symmetrical your wheel is. Now, you can never have perfect symmetry. Areas are going to get out of whack. Excuse me. And you're not always going to be perfectly round. But this is a very good visual of how out of whack your wheel might be. So I can see here, this side's a little flat. This area is not as high as I want it to be. This side's got a little flatness too. Something's going on here in the friends and the family area. These are symmetrical, pretty good. They're pretty high. I'm probably okay with those right now. So it gives you a good visual. We'll see all kinds of shapes. Squares, there's circles, there's often triangles. But this gives you a good visual. And this should be very telling to you on which areas are out of whack. And then look at the bottom of this page. Again, you've got the 6 F's along the bottom in the first column. And there's 2 columns. There's called a now column and a goal column. And the way this works is you put the now score, of course, would be the scores you just ranked in each of those areas. So you'd write those down in the now column. And just like in a planning day, I want you to think about what you would like those to be at some future point. And let's stay with the 90 days. So My question to you would be, over the next 90 days, what would you like that score to be? Over the next 90 days, what would you like that score? Excuse me, I got a phone ringing in the background. Hopefully that doesn't disturb you. So what would you like that score to be at the end of 90 days? So if you're, let's say family on this one example, I had a 6 and I want it to be an 8. And what you're going to do is you're going to think, oh, I like these scores to be this at the end of 90 days. And the next box, this box over here, is where you're going to determine an action you're going to be willing to commit to that you're going to take over the next 90 days that if you do will raise that score. Again, a plan is nothing without an action. So I'm going to have you write these scores down, what you want them to be, which is kind of that future state. And then you're going to decide any specific action you're going to take over the next 90 days to raise the score in each of those areas. Trust me, this works. If you do this, your scores will go up in all of these areas. I can promise you, we've seen really testimony after testimony. People come back to us and, man, that's the most impactful thing I've ever had in my personal life, because it now has put the focus on the right things. So an example, let's say your family's a low area for you, and I had it here. I'm going to raise my family score from a 6 to an 8. And the action I'm going to take is I'm going to host 3 family dinners, 1 per month at my house. I'm going to cook. I'm going to have everybody come over. I'm going to feed. And we're going to sit around the table and talk and just talk about life and get to know the family a little better. In my friends area, similar thing. I'm going to have lunch with 1 friend for the next 3 months. So one time a month, I'm going to have a friend to lunch. So if I do that, I believe my score will go up in the friends area. So think about it. Choose an action that will raise the score, commit to that action, and go do it. Helpful hint, to raise the likelihood of success, share your wheel of life with another person and ask them to hold you accountable. Share this with them. Say, hey, call me once a week, see how I'm doing. There's a 42% increase in success if you introduce accountability into anything you do. So why not, basically double your opportunity of success by asking someone to hold you accountable. That's kind of the secret sauce. Go do this. If you do this, then I've lived my purpose today. I've had a positive impact for you. Hopefully the planning part of this has helped you in your business, and this will help you in your personal life. One final tip, do this with your family. Give them a sheet and let them do it and compare notes. It's really interesting to see their take on all these areas and your take. And you'll find that if you and your spouse may not be aligned, there may need to be some work done there. So anyway, take that and use that and let me know. I'd love to hear your success stories, but let me know if I can help with that. All right, so we've got all kinds of tools. We're about to wrap up. We got tons of tools available on our website, free for you, people that participate in our webinars. We've got worksheets galore. We've got webinars. We got some free downloadable books, entire books you can download and read that we've created. We've got a ton of workshops and webinars that are upcoming and that we recorded that can help you in your business. We've become as much an educational company as we are a coaching company through all this. We realize that companies need a little more insight. And we had a lot to offer that we need to deliver to the masses. So we've got a ton of resources. And I encourage you to take advantage of those. So here's where it is. First of all, Petra Coach, I'm a coach. If you've got any questions about what we did today, or something piques your interest about what we do and you have an interest, just email me and we'll get on a call and talk about it and see if there's an opportunity for us to help out some way. Obviously, we're in the business of coaching, so if that's something that you're interested in as well, reach out to us as well. This is the sign up. I would advise you to do that probably immediately. They put these links up and they don't always stay active for long periods of time. So anytime we have a webinar, we reactivate it, but they aren't always active. So do it now. Go to the petracoach.com/the-vault and sign up, and they'll give you access to all these tools that I just showed you on the previous slide. but do it now. Again, I don't know how these don't always stay active for long periods of time. So if you're interested, do that right away as soon as we end this right now, or as soon as we end this webinar. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to David and our host, and we can entertain any questions if there's any out there, or move from that point.
Dave, that was an excellent presentation. I love your
Thank you.
tools.
Thank you.
For
They're
that.
simple, but they're very helpful. Thank you, Tony.
Yes, I agree with that. They are very helpful. I did have a couple of questions for you. When you were talking about people and culture, one of the components of scaling up, you said up front that it's the most important in order to outperform competitors. I agree with you, but I was just wanting to know, like, what's your insight and why you believe that way?
Yeah, the key is really engagement. You want to have all of your team members that believe the same thing you believe. If you're a founder, you've kind of got it, you're bought in, obviously, as a founder, but you want them to really act like an owner. And the way you do that is you first hire and bring people in that believe the same things you do, and you educate them, and then you live those values. If I can raise the employee engagement, I mean, typical engagement of the company, Tony, is 30%. Mm-hmm. We find that if you have the culture that people want to be a part of, that they're willing to get up in the middle of the night and go do something for you, engagement levels go up 60, 70%. Wow. And I can tell you, if you've got a team of engaged teammates at that level, there's no stopping you. So you've got to get that right. If you don't, it's an uphill battle because people aren't bought in. So it's really just a job for them. And they're not as excited about what you're doing. You want it to be a career and really a lifestyle for them. So if you get that part and you do it really well, your job as a leader is that much easier. And people become self-governing. They figure out things that you would have never thought about because they're so bought in. That's why we say it's so important.
That's awesome, though. I like that type of thinking. I love the fact that you said that they would want to wake up and do something for you. Yeah. That's key. I see that now.
Exactly.
So I just wanted you to know that Devin Stansberry says, yes, this was very valuable. They love the Wheel of Life, and they are actually going to use it. So they said, thank you.
They do. Yeah, please do. Share it with your friends and family. I did it. I did it with my family 2 years ago on New Year's Eve. I failed to do it the next time. And they said, where's our Wheel of Life, man? Let's do this. So it is impactful.
I have a question about the execution part. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times I know that's where a lot of people in business, they kind of struggle with that part. Yeah. And you said at the very beginning of that section, you said it's what you are doing now, taking you where you want to go. Right? Do you have some type of tool to kind of help people to make that assessment of where they're at right now?
Yeah, it really starts back at the strategy. You've got to decide where you want to go ultimately. So, you're looking at the right thing. Too often we come in and just work day to day. I mean, entrepreneurs are known for, seat of the pants. It's kind of something they're often proud of because I can run my business, but with the complexity, it's difficult to do this. So you got to catch a vision on where you really want to go in some longer term, because that keeps your focus on the right thing. Okay. And then you just assess, based on that, how do I compare? Well, I want to be at $10 million. I've only got 100,000 in sales. I got a long way to go. So you got to set some metrics out there you're shooting for, and then you compare your current state to those metrics. And that'll give you an idea. I got a long way to go. I want to be in 10 metropolitan cities with offices. I'm currently in one city. So you got to set some metrics to compare yourself to. So set those first, and then do a reality check and say, well, that metric I'm here, that metric I'm here, that capability I'm here, whatever, and then compare yourself. Then you can see what the gaps are. So you got to kind of start with the end game first. That's why we start with strategy and work your way back.
Okay. So I just wanted you to know that Debbie Childress says, I'm going to bring out the Wheel of Life at Thanksgiving.
Good deal. Good deal. Let me know how that goes, Debbie. Send me an email.
And then Diane Cushman, she says, thank you. This was awesome information. And she definitely plans on using the Plan of Life with her family.
Excellent. Excellent.
So I guess my next question to you, when you are looking at your priorities, a lot of times what I find with entrepreneurs is that they want to do everything,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So how do you kind of like how do you actually select a priority, I guess is the
Yeah.
best way to put it.
Yeah. And that's an iterative thing. It's better if you've got a qualified team with you to help make that decision. What we do typically in a room, we're working on priorities. We'll have every individual work individually. Here's what I believe are the top priorities we need to focus on this quarter, and we'll have them work individually, and then we'll facilitate a discussion, and we'll get some alignment on. It's kind of interesting how that works. You'll find alignment on 2 or 3 things that everybody kind of thinks by doing that. So we start with individual assessments and then combine that and look for the alignment pieces there. Sometimes the owner, you generally just know, here's the thing, and that's okay too. But it's better if you can get your team to give insight because that gets their buy-in and engagement as well. But I'm going to challenge you as a coach. You got 10 things to go. You can't do 10 things with excellence this quarter. You've got to pick the top 5. And they may not be totally the correct 5, but at least you'll be doing something. So don't wait for perfection. Choose the best you can and then begin to execute. As you do the process quarter after quarter, you get better at that and say, well, I now know a better way to do that as I go forward. And we make a statement, don't let the urgent get in front of the important. And too often we let the urgent take over. And the urgent is that phone call from a customer who's irate, and you spend 3 weeks working on that one customer, and all the important stuff has gone by the wayside. So is it important or is it just urgent? And the urgent things often don't need that dedication from you. Maybe that's something you get somebody else to work on. And you're more important for you to work on the business. So it's an art as much as it is anything, and it comes with just doing it consistently every quarter, and you'll get better at choosing the right things. But my recommendation, don't wait to think that you've got it perfect. Here's the perfect 5. You do the best you can, come up with your 5 and execute, because you're never going to get perfection. And if you don't make a choice and begin to have actions and take actions, you're going to be the same place you are 90 days from now. So it's really up to you, and you get better as you work through the process. But engage your team in the process. Is the recommendation.
So Jim O'Neill says, fantastic presentation. He agrees with everybody, but he says with the BHAG and shortened to a 3 to 5 year plan, when is an appropriate interval to revisit the BHAG?
We call it an annual reset. Every year we sit down with our teams and kind of set up the next year, but we also look at the BHAG. We just review. Does everybody think, is that still where we're going? Now that we had a year under our belt now from last time, and we have, we'll have sometimes it's a 5-minute discussion, sometimes it's a 3-hour discussion. So the good thing is you've got all this on this 1-page plan. You're really looking at it every day. It's there for you. It's so concise that you've got it in front of you as often as you want to. So it's not something that kind of resides in the closet and you bring it out once a year or so. It's always present. But every year we just we call it a reset or a refresh. We look at the entire 1-page plan, all the components that are on there, and just validate that they're still applicable. One example is a SWOT. Who would have had a pandemic as a threat? Probably didn't last year. I guarantee everybody's SWOT now has a pandemic on it. So we take what's happened and we update everything. You don't recreate it most of the time, but the BHAG, looks at it, at least thought about it at least once a year, if not more often.
Okay, excellent. That's actually an excellent advice to give people about that too.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like we don't have any other questions in our chat. I want to thank you so much for your presentation. I've learned so much today, and I'm probably going to steal some of your ideas. I'm just going to tell you that. No,
it's all everything we got is available. Man. We're just here to have, our purpose is to have a positive impact, and that's through our tools and our webinars and our resources. So let me know how we can help.
I love that. Thank you so much. So I think with that, we can go ahead and end out and make sure. Yes, it looks like that we can go ahead. Yes, everybody's telling me thank you and a great presentation.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.